I'm Catherine Ross, and I'm here live from the floor of the NYSE with Jim Cramer. Jim, what's top of mind for you this morning?
Top of mind for me is why you see certain bullishness is stock like a Micron, where basically Sanjay Mehrotra, the CEO, very smart guy, called the bottom this quarter in semiconductors, in the what are commodity, so-called, in DRAM and NAND. And what that means is you look at the read-through, and that's tremendous demand, data center, tremendous demand for cell phone, 5G, and then really just overall kind of a hyper-convergence cloud stocks. So what that means is that you go back to the cloud kings. You can buy any one of them. VMware I just spoke to, but Splunk is one that's a read through for me. Obviously Salesforce. I just feel that you can go all the way down the list. You can use Zscaler, okay? You can do PagerDuty, which I think works here. That's Jennifer Hatta. And sorry, Jim. And I do think that Hatta, I mentioned that because the stock's way down, and it could be its time. So the read-throughs are tremendous out of Micron. And away from that, I do think the market's overbought. I want to be careful.
There's one thing that you always preach to our members over on ActionAlertsPlus.com, and that is own your mistakes. So I want to ask you, Jim,
Yes.
In 2019, what was your biggest investing mistake, and how did you fix it?
Okay, my biggest investment mistake was believing that with oil bottoming in the low 50s, which I thought it would, that somehow these stocks would be more involved with a commodity, and they weren't. And that's because a lot of them are related to the Permian, where even though they cut back the rigs, they didn't cut back the amount that was pumping. And I didn't think that the international oils would not do a lot of drilling, since they're supposed to be able to replace, and they're not replacing. So it was Schlumberger. And now the way I actually hopefully fix it is I double down at what we think is the low, because there's 5% yield and can pay that. But the misjudgment on the oil stocks was made by a lot of people, and I wonder how much of my misjudgment directly has to do with the fact that the millennials don't want to buy those stocks, millennial money managers either. So that was a bad misjudgment by me.
Over on Real Money this morning, you wrote about the impeachment, and you wrote about the similarities between 2019 and 1998, and there are quite a few, and I want to break down just three for our viewers. One of which is back in 1998, we had 3 rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. We also have that in 2019. We had the president impeached in 1998. President Clinton was impeached on December 20th. In 2019, President Trump was impeached on December 18th. And Jim, we also had a stock market hitting all-time highs in both years.
Yes,
and you've mentioned that.
Right. Now, the reason why I tried to thank you for Ben Stoddard putting these numbers together, but the reason I wanted to mention that in part is because you did get an interregnum right here where the market fell a little bit between when thing went from the House to the Senate, because there was some drama that perhaps the Senate would actually convict, because the Senate was controlled by the Republicans. This time, there isn't as much drama, obviously, but it was, some people think history repeats itself, and this could be a weaker moment. So if you wanted to buy, let's say, put your 401k contribution, maybe wait to see if we go down a little bit. That's I have contributions that I have to make, and the S&P oscillator is +5, and I'm just in a quandary because I so much want to do it. I can only own index funds. This is my retirement account, but I'm not going to do it until we see lower prices.
What's one thing that investors can learn from the markets in 1998 that they can apply to 2019, 2020?
That technology is far more lasting than people realize, provided you have the right technology. There were a lot of companies that did not have earnings, and they went out of business. But if they had earnings, after they came down, you didn't want to buy the firecrackers. But after they came down, you had to buy them. The distinguishing characteristic was cash flow and earnings. And what matters to me is that people should remember that a technology company with cash flow and earnings is a lot better to buy than one that isn't, except for Amazon and Netflix. They were the aberration. And Netflix is the aberration again, along with Tesla, but people are starting to use some actual numbers. saying that Tesla's going to have an earnings breakout in 2020 or 2021, and that's why Tesla's stock is breaking out. I want to salute the knuckleheads on Twitter who say I just got aboard on Tesla when I actually got aboard a few weeks ago and it was considerably lower.
Our real money stock of the day is Micron, which you mentioned at the top of the show, but I want to ask, because the company said they've hit a cyclical bottom this quarter, and I've got to ask, why should investors believe that?
Well, I think they can believe it because there's shortages in there are some shortages in their NAND flash, and the rate of the cutting of the price, so to speak, the rate of change is slowing for DRAMs, and that is typically the sign that inventories are getting in line, which is really good, and the sign that you do have a bottom. So inventory is getting in line, and the slowing of the deceleration in prices is very, very positive. You get that degradation in price, and it can, it's going like this, and then it just kind of goes like this. That is typically when you have to buy Micron. And Micron, by the way, does not just go. It goes in gobs of increments, like 20, 30 points. There's a Credit Suisse has a piece out where they're using $90 price target. And if you think that things are really bottom, that could prove to be right. It could prove to be prescient.
Jim, we've got two big things coming up. First of all, we've got our Eagles, your Eagles, my Cowboys, facing off this weekend in Philly. And we've got our final show of 2019 for Bull Market Fantasy live at 10:45 a.m. on bullmarketfantasy.com.
I will give you a heads up that Bill Enright, our partner, is saying that not only that Dak will play. I was hoping that Dak might not play against the Eagles. That was really important. And yeah, it's our final one. We'll have some reflections, obviously. But of course, we're still trying to get you to be able to adjust your lineup if you're in the finals. And then we have JFA, which is Jimmy from Anywhere, who is as hot as I've ever seen someone with the lock of the week. And I think if you only just look at the lock of the week, you'll have spent good time.
And if you got last minute questions, please send them in. Head on over to bullmarketfantasy.com to the Ask Cramer section, or you can tweet at bullmarketfantasy at bullmarketmktfantasy, or at me at by Catherine Ross, and we'll answer them live on the show. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Catherine.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. We're now heading over to our Action Alerts Plus Daily Rundown Show over on actionalertsplus.com. I'm Catherine Ross, and I'll see you tomorrow.